Have you ever wondered why something that once brought comfort, relief, and even joy now feels mechanical, disconnected, or frustrating? What if I told you that a private act, something you've done for decades, might now be quietly working against you, silently harming your sensitivity, your prostate, even your confidence as a man over 60? Most older men never hear this from their doctors, but I'm here to change that. Sure? I'm Dr. James, a men's health specialist with over 30 years of experience helping men navigate the real challenges that come with aging. Circulation issues, declining hormones, intimacy concerns, and yes, what happens when you're alone, behind closed doors. Here's the hard truth most men never consider. Masturbation doesn't just stop being good for you with age, but how you do it must evolve. The same techniques that worked in your 30s may now cause numbness, frustration, or even long-term dysfunction in your 60s and beyond. That's why in today's session, I'm going to reveal the 7 most common mistakes older men make when it comes to self-pleasure. Habits that quietly wear down your sensitivity, your confidence, and your overall well-being. More importantly, I'll show you how to fix each one, using simple science-backed shifts that reignite your natural rhythm, pleasure, and control. And I urge you, stay with me through the end, because mistake number 6, it's the most dangerous of all, and it's costing thousands of older men their peace of mind every single day. Let's begin. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another real, honest health conversation made specifically for men over 60. And if this message speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me create content that truly supports you. All right, let's begin with the first and perhaps most misunderstood mistake I see in men over 60, and it's one that's been fueled by myths, internet rumors, and a lot of silent confusion. It's the belief that holding back ejaculation somehow makes you stronger, more masculine, or more youthful. But as you'll see, the truth is far more complex and far more important for your health than you might think. Mistake #1. Believing the semen retention myth. Let me share something I hear more often than you might expect. An older gentleman sitting across from me, usually in his mid-60s or 70s, leans in and says quietly, "Dr. James, I've been holding it in. They say it helps keep your energy sharp. Am I doing the right thing?" Every time I pause and look him in the eye, and with all the compassion and truth I can offer, I say, "No, my friend, you're not helping your body. In fact, you might be putting it under unnecessary strain." This myth, this idea that semen retention boosts testosterone or supercharges your vitality, has been floating around for decades. Recently, the internet gave it new life. But here's the reality. What may feel like discipline on the surface could be quietly disrupting your physical balance and emotional well-being underneath. Your body was not designed to hoard semen like a hidden power source. It was built for flow, rhythm, release. When you withhold for too long, especially at this stage in life, you may begin to feel things most men chalk up to just aging. Pelvic pressure that lingers. Mood swings you can't quite explain. A restlessness that sleep won't fix. These aren't coincidences. They're consequences. From a physiological perspective, prolonged retention can lead to something called pelvic congestion, a condition where blood and fluids build up in the lower region, causing discomfort, tension, and in some cases, increasing your risk for prostate complications. Think of it like standing water. It's not dangerous at first, but leave it untouched long enough and problems start to grow. Now, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean frequent compulsive release is the answer either. The goal here is balance, not excess, not suppression, a healthy rhythm that matches your body's changing needs. And when you release mindfully, once, maybe twice a week, you're not losing energy. You're supporting circulation. You're keeping the prostate healthy and the nervous system regulated. You're helping your body breathe. And I've seen it in my patients. Men who stop punishing themselves with guilt and start listening to their bodies often sleep better, think clearer, and feel emotionally lighter. Not because of magic, because of biology. There's another layer here too. Many men who follow the semen retention myth aren't just chasing testosterone. They're trying to feel in control. They want to believe they can still command their bodies with willpower, but real strength at this stage of life doesn't come from restriction. It comes from wisdom, from knowing what serves you and what doesn't. You are not weak for needing release. You are not indulgent for wanting to feel alive. You're human. And when approached with self-respect, release becomes not a loss, but a gift, a reset, a moment of alignment between body and mind. So if you've been clenching, holding back, thinking you're gaining power, I encourage you to ask, has it really helped? Or have you been carrying tension that no one ever gave you permission to let go of? Let this be that permission. And speaking of long-held habits, there's another common pattern that I see stealing men's sensitivity without them even knowing it. It's something most guys have been doing the exact same way since their teenage years, and it could be quietly training your body to feel less, not more. Let's talk about that next. Mistake #2, using the same grip and technique every time. Over the years, I've had countless conversations with men, good men, honest men, who tell me something like this. Dr. James, I don't know what's going on. I used to feel everything. Now, it's like my body doesn't respond the way it used to. It takes longer, or worse, it feels like nothing at all. And the truth is, I understand that confusion, because no one ever told us that your nervous system, the intricate highway of sensation and connection running through your body, doesn't just respond to touch, it adapts to it. What do I mean? Let's say for decades you've used the same hand, same grip, same pressure, same rhythm. It became familiar, comforting, automatic. And maybe for years it worked, but over time your body has quietly trained itself to respond only to that one specific type of stimulation. Anything else, partnered intimacy, lighter touch, emotional connection, suddenly feels foreign, dull, or even frustrating. That's not aging, that's conditioning. Think about it this way. If you only ever did one exercise in the gym, say curls, you'd have strong biceps but weak everything else. Your body wouldn't be balanced, it wouldn't grow. That's exactly what happens with sexual sensation. When you only activate the same pattern over and over, the rest of your pleasure map starts to shut down. Not because it's broken, but because it hasn't been called upon in years. The good news? You can retrain your body. You can wake those nerves up again, and you don't need anything fancy to do it. I often encourage my patients to start small. Try switching hands, change the grip, softer, slower, maybe even awkward at first. Explore different rhythms. Try new positions, standing, lying on your side, maybe even using your non-dominant hand. You're not abandoning what worked, you're expanding what's possible. And yes, it will feel unfamiliar in the beginning. That's normal. Growth always feels that way. But as the days go on, your body will start to respond in new ways. Sensation returns, awareness sharpens, even your connection with your own mind deepens because you're no longer just chasing release. You're engaging with yourself. I remember one patient, late 60s, came back to see me 6 weeks after making just one change. He switched hands and slowed down. And you know what he told me? For the first time in years, I didn't just feel relief. I felt alive. That's the power of presence. That's the power of variation. This isn't about novelty for novelty's sake. It's about keeping your nervous system awake, responsive, and in sync with who you are now, not who you were 30 years ago. You're not trying to rewind the clock. You're learning how to make today count. And the more you allow yourself to evolve, the more your body rewards you with sensation, connection, and yes, pleasure that actually means something again. Now here's something most men never think twice about, but it's quietly eroding their experience day after day. It's not about technique, it's about time. Because if you're rushing the process, you may be missing the most powerful sensations your body still has to offer. Let me explain. Mistake hash 3, rushing through the experience. I still remember a patient named Carl, 68, who sat in my office and said, "Dr. James, I don't even know why I bother anymore. It's over before I feel anything. It's like checking a box, not actually being present." And he wasn't alone. This is something I hear more than you'd believe. Many men over 60 are unknowingly stuck in a pattern that started when they were 15, rushing through the act, trying to finish quickly. Back then it made sense. Maybe it was about privacy. Maybe it was about guilt. Maybe it was just habit. But now, decades later, that same instinct to finish fast has turned into a quiet thief, stealing not only sensation but also the emotional richness that this part of life is meant to offer. The problem with rushing is that it turns something intimate into something mechanical. It becomes less about connection and more about completion. Your nervous system barely has time to engage. Your arousal doesn't get a chance to build. Your mind can't settle into the moment. And so what could have been fulfilling ends up feeling hollow, almost like a task. That sense of being done, but not satisfied. That's not because your body is failing, it's because you haven't given it the time it now needs to respond fully. As we age, the body changes. Blood flow slows. Sensation may take longer to surface, but the capacity for pleasure, that doesn't go away, it just asks for more attention. And the truth is, slowing down isn't about dragging things out. It's about giving yourself permission to fully arrive in the moment. I often tell men to think of it like this. You wouldn't rush a good meal. You wouldn't fast forward through your favorite song. So why hurry through something as personal and meaningful as connecting with your own body? Start with breath. Deep, steady breathing is one of the quickest ways to get back in touch with your body. Let go of the need to climax and simply explore sensation without pressure. Light, intentional touch. A slower rhythm, maybe even pausing every now and then just to feel what's really happening inside you. You might be surprised how much more your body gives when you stop demanding and start listening. I had a gentleman in his early 70s who began adding just 5 extra minutes to his routine. No goal, just presence. 2 weeks later, he told me it felt like a part of him had come back to life. Not because of any miracle supplement or medical device, but because he gave himself time. And through that, he found clarity, confidence, and a deeper kind of satisfaction he hadn't felt in years. The lesson here is simple. If you treat this time like it matters, it will start to matter again. Now, even when men start to slow down, many still make one quiet mistake. They only focus on one part of their body, completely overlooking the areas that could dramatically expand their experience. There's a whole world of sensation waiting to be rediscovered. And most men don't even know it exists. Let me show you what I mean. Mistake hash 4, ignoring the rest of your body. There was a moment in my career I'll never forget. A man in his 70s, soft-spoken, came to see me not for any urgent problem, but because he said something was missing. His words stuck with me. He said, "It's like all the feeling has drained out of me, not just physically, but emotionally too." We talked for a while, and eventually, I asked him a question most men have never been asked in their entire lives. When was the last time you touched yourself somewhere other than your genitals? Not just during intimacy, but at all. He looked at me for a moment, confused, and finally said, "I don't think I ever have." That silence, that pause, it said everything. For most men, self-pleasure becomes a narrow act. One motion, one goal, one part of the body. We're taught early on that anything outside of that is unnecessary or even shameful. So we limit ourselves. We shrink the entire experience down to 1 square inch of skin and forget that we're living in a body filled with nerve endings, with memory, with energy. But here's the truth I've seen again and again in my patients, and in my own life too. The rest of your body is not a distraction. It's a doorway. Your thighs, chest, lower abdomen, neck, shoulders, even your feet are rich with sensation that can reignite what you thought was gone. And one of the most powerful, often ignored areas is the perineum, that sensitive space between the testicles and the anus. Gentle pressure or warmth there can send signals through your entire pelvic floor and trigger a kind of arousal that feels deeper, more grounded, more whole. When you include more of your body in this experience, something shifts. You stop treating pleasure like a task and begin to experience it as connection. Your nervous system wakes up in new places. Your breathing slows. Your heart rate aligns. You begin to feel, not just in one spot, but throughout your body. Touching your chest while you breathe, holding your stomach as sensation builds, running your fingers along your thighs. These aren't indulgent acts. They are acts of self-awareness, of presence, of healing. And the most beautiful part, you start to feel emotionally alive again, because you're not just stimulating, you're remembering what it feels like to be whole, to be curious, to be comfortable in your own skin. I once had a retired firefighter tell me after trying full-body touch for the first time, "Doc, I didn't just feel better, I felt human again." That's what happens when you stop isolating pleasure to one part of yourself and begin inviting the rest of your body back into the conversation. But even with this expanded awareness, there's something else that often gets overlooked, and it's much more practical. It's something so simple, so obvious, most men don't even consider it. Yet avoiding it could be reducing your sensitivity and making the experience feel far less satisfying than it should. I'm talking about lubrication, and why it's not just helpful, it's essential. Let me explain. Mistake #5. Avoiding lubrication. This is one of those topics that makes a lot of older men shift in their seats, not because it's uncomfortable to talk about, but because they never realized it mattered. For years, lubrication has been seen as optional, or worse, as something other people use. But I can tell you from experience, avoiding lubrication is one of the quietest ways men in their 60s and beyond dull their own pleasure and damage their sensitivity without even knowing it. Let me paint the picture. As we age, natural moisture levels in the skin decline. The nerve endings around the genitals, already working harder to maintain sensation, don't respond the way they used to. Add dry skin and friction, and you've got a perfect recipe for irritation, micro-tears, and a slow erosion of pleasure over time. You might not feel it happening in the moment. Maybe there's a little discomfort, a slight burning sensation, or a subtle numbness afterward. Most men ignore it, chalk it up to age, and move on. But what they're not seeing is the long-term effect: decreased sensitivity, increased skin resistance, and eventually a dulling of what once felt vivid and alive. And here's the frustrating part. This is so easy to fix. Using lubrication isn't a crutch. It's not a sign that you're losing your edge. It's a sign that you're wise enough to adapt. Just like wearing reading glasses doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're taking care of what matters. Lubrication helps reduce friction. It allows for smoother, more natural motion. It brings back a sense of comfort and fluidity. And for many men, it actually helps wake up nerve endings that have gone quiet after years of overstimulation or dryness. I've had men tell me they hadn't felt that kind of intensity in years, until they used lube for the first time in decades. It's not just about making things more comfortable, it's about restoring sensation, giving your body what it needs to feel good again. And it goes beyond just comfort. For men dealing with arthritis, tremors, or reduced grip strength, lubrication also makes the experience easier, more manageable, less physically straining. You're not fighting friction, you're flowing with your body. I always recommend using a high-quality, skin-safe lubricant, something that supports your natural rhythm and doesn't dry out too quickly. Some prefer water-based, others like silicone-based for a longer, silkier feel. It may take some trial and error, but once you find what works, it can completely transform your relationship with touch. This isn't about being fancy. It's about being smart. It's about respecting the changes in your body and making adjustments that support longevity, sensation, and pleasure. You wouldn't drive an old car without oil. You wouldn't run dry gears. So why treat your own body with anything less? Now, even when men do start making these practical changes, there's still something else that holds many of them back. And it's not physical, it's emotional. I see it in their faces when they try to talk about it. I hear it in the silence between their words. It's shame. Quiet, inherited, unspoken shame. And it may be doing more damage than any physical habit ever could. Let's talk about that next. Mistake #6. Feeling shame or guilt about the act. There's something I wish more men would say out loud, something I've heard quietly, behind closed doors, in voices tinged with embarrassment or regret. It usually comes after a long pause in conversation, when a man in his 60s or 70s finally leans in and says, "Doc, is it wrong that I still do it?" And every time, my heart softens, because I know exactly where that question is coming from. Many of us were raised in a time when self-pleasure wasn't discussed. It was condemned, ridiculed, or shamed. We were taught that touching yourself was dirty, that desire without a partner was selfish, that any sexual urge not directed toward procreation was somehow less than. And while we may think we've moved beyond that messaging, it lingers. Quietly, deeply, especially as we age. The result? Guilt after the act, rushing through it so no one knows, hiding it even from yourself, and worst of all, feeling like you've somehow failed just for wanting to feel good in your own body. Let me tell you something plainly. There is nothing shameful about your desire to feel connection, release, or relief. There is nothing wrong with seeking comfort in your own hands. In fact, research shows that regular mindful self-pleasure can help improve sleep, reduce anxiety, boost mood, and even support heart health in older adults. But guilt changes the chemistry of the experience. It turns something healthy into something burdensome. It tenses the body, it clouds the mind, it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong even when your body is simply asking to be acknowledged, to be touched, to be cared for. One of the most powerful shifts I've seen in my patients is when they stop treating masturbation as a secret and start treating it as self-care. A ritual, a check-in with their body, their stress level, their energy. I had one man tell me that once he stopped rushing and started giving himself emotional permission, he felt calmer, not just during the act, but in his daily life. More centered, more in tune. He wasn't chasing release. He was honoring his needs. And that's the key. It's not about whether or not you masturbate. It's about how you feel about it. If every time you finish you feel worse than before, then it's not your body that needs fixing. It's the belief you're carrying. Ask yourself, who told me this was wrong? Was it my family, religion, a teacher from childhood? Were those their beliefs, or were they mine? Do they still serve me today? Because here's the truth. Pleasure is not a young man's game. It is a human need. It belongs to you as much now at 65 or 75 as it ever did at 25. In fact, I would argue you may need it more now. For grounding, for emotional release, for connection in a life that may feel more solitary than it once did. There is no expiration date on your right to feel good in your own skin. The moment you stop hiding, stop apologizing, and start approaching this part of your life with intention and respect, everything changes. You begin to feel whole again. Now, even when the guilt fades, many men are still stuck using the same old methods they've relied on for decades, unaware that new modern tools exist to support their aging bodies. These aren't gimmicks or toys, they're game changers specifically designed for men in your stage of life. And once you discover what's available, you may wonder why you waited so long. Let me show you what I mean. Mistake #7. Ignoring tools and enhancements designed for men over 60. I remember talking with a man named Walter, 72 years old, sharp mind, retired engineer. He came into my office with a very straightforward concern. He said, "Doc, I feel disconnected. I still want intimacy, but my body isn't responding the way it used to. It's frustrating. I don't want pills. I don't want gimmicks. I just want to feel like myself again. What Walter didn't realize, and what so many men his age don't, is that the way we approach self-pleasure at 60, 70, or beyond cannot be the same way we approached it at 25. The body changes, sensitivity shifts, joints get stiff, grip strength weakens, and yet so many men are still using the same old technique, expecting the same results. Here's the honest truth. Your body deserves support, and there are tools available, modern, practical, respectful tools that were specifically designed to enhance your experience without changing who you are. These aren't childish gadgets. These are smart, purpose-built solutions for older men who still want to feel good but need a little help getting there. I'm talking about things like soft, medical-grade silicone sleeves that mimic the warmth and texture of real skin. Devices with ergonomic grips for those dealing with arthritis or limited range of motion. Even gentle, vibrating massagers for the perineum and pelvic floor, areas that can trigger deep, full-body arousal when stimulated properly. For some reason, we've been taught to feel ashamed about using tools, as if needing assistance means you've failed. But here's the truth I keep repeating to my patients. Adapting isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You use reading glasses when your vision fades. You wear a supportive shoe when your knees start to ache. Why wouldn't you offer that same care and intelligence to one of the most sensitive, emotionally meaningful parts of your life? When you use tools designed with your age and needs in mind, you're not replacing your touch. You're expanding what's possible. You're reducing effort, you're improving comfort, and you're reigniting parts of your nervous system that may have gone quiet, not because they're broken, but because they've been understimulated for years. The results I've seen are remarkable. I've had men tell me that for the first time in a decade, they felt present again, fully engaged, fully alive, even joyful. Not because of a miracle, because they stopped expecting their body to behave like it did at 30 and started supporting it like it's 70. With care, with grace, and with the right tools. There is nothing undignified about doing what it takes to feel whole. In fact, I believe it's one of the most dignified things a man can do, because it says, I still matter, my needs still count, my body is still worth caring for. But tools and techniques are only part of the story. What really changes everything, the one thing that makes all of these habits come alive, is your mindset. If you've ever wondered what it means to truly reclaim this part of your life, not as a habit or a release, but as a form of connection and healing, then you'll want to hear this next part, because it ties everything together in a way most men never expect. Let's bring it all home. Conclusion: reclaiming pleasure, confidence, and self-respect. If you've made it this far, then I want to say something simple but meaningful. I respect you. I respect your willingness to listen, to reflect, and to reconsider how you treat yourself, especially in the parts of life most people never talk about out loud. That kind of openness takes strength. It takes self-respect, and it's exactly the kind of mindset that leads to real change. Over the years, I've worked with thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, and I've seen one truth again and again: we don't lose our need for intimacy as we age. We just stop giving ourselves permission to feel it. Somewhere along the way, we begin to believe that pleasure has an expiration date, that our desires are no longer valid, that taking time for ourselves somehow makes us weak, selfish, or out of step. But I'm here to remind you that nothing could be further from the truth. When we started this conversation, we talked about the 7 common mistakes older men make when it comes to self-pleasure. And now I hope you see that they weren't really just mistakes, they were habits. Quiet patterns passed down through silence, shame, and outdated thinking. We talked about the myth of semen retention and how holding back doesn't make you stronger. It often makes you tense, irritable, and disconnected. We uncovered how using the same grip and technique for decades can desensitize the body and dull your connection to sensation. We looked at how rushing through the experience turns something meaningful into a mechanical act, robbing you of presence and satisfaction. We explored what happens when you ignore the rest of your body, how you're missing out on a world of sensation and emotional connection that lives beyond one narrow zone. We exposed the quiet damage done when lubrication is avoided, how dryness and friction can steal away comfort and sensitivity. We faced the deeper emotional weight of shame and guilt, how they shape not just your experience in the moment, but your entire relationship with your body. And finally, we acknowledged the power of tools, the modern, intelligent, respectful aids that can bring back feeling, ease, and pleasure in a way that works with your aging body, not against it. Each of these changes, these small shifts in awareness, intention, and technique, isn't about becoming someone you're not. It's about coming home to who you are now. Today, a man with decades of life behind him, wisdom in his bones, and every right to still feel joy in his own skin. I've had men tell me they feel reborn after making just one or two changes we discussed. Not because they were chasing youth, but because they finally stopped fighting themselves. They started listening, slowing down, letting go, treating self-pleasure not as a secret but as self-care. And in doing so, they found confidence again, peace, even purpose. Because when you reclaim this part of yourself, you don't just improve your private moments, you restore your connection to your body, your mood, your energy, and even your sense of identity. You become more present, more grounded, more in tune with life. So wherever you are right now, whether you feel unsure, curious, or ready to try something new, I want you to know this. It is never too late to reconnect. It is never too late to feel. And it is never too late to honor the man you are exactly as you are, with respect, with care, and without apology. You are not broken. You are not done. You are simply ready for a better way forward. And it starts now with you. If this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share one insight you're walking away with. Or simply type 1 if this helped you in any way. Your feedback means more than you know, and it helps guide the next topics we cover together. If you found value in this video, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a brother, or someone who might be silently searching for answers, because no man should feel alone in this part of life. And of course, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next conversation made just for men like you, men who still care about their health, their confidence, and their connection to life. If you'd like to support the work we do here, consider leaving a small donation through the link below. Every bit goes toward creating content that truly supports older men with honesty, respect, and real solutions. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself.